I know a lot of people aren't into the draft rumors, the draft lies, the draft smoke screens, but I think they're fun. They at least keep us busy for a couple of months as we work our way through the same discussions around the same prospects over and over and over again with a couple of measurements and pro day workouts to toss in. They serve a purpose, do they not?
What was the smoke screen of the 2023 NFL draft?
That's a good question.
Maybe the way the Texans operated?
It felt like, so remember we talked about this? Diana ended up in Tennessee on draft night, on the first round of the draft, because she had heard reliably that the Titans were going to try and get up in the draft for C.J. Stroud. Now, the smokescreen was that the Texans were ever going to allow them to get anywhere close to 3 because their plan the entire time was to take C.J. Stroud second and Will Anderson Jr. third, and that the Titans were never really going to be able to do that deal, even though they were at least led to believe that a theoretical deal might be in place. Diana ended up here on a Thursday night for ESPN to do their draft coverage, and they picked a guard. So, what are you giggling about?
Wasn't Will Levis the smokescreen? His odds for number 1 were they shoot up the day before or day of the draft. I feel like he has to be the smokescreen.
That was the biggest surprise of the first round, was Levis falling out of the first round.
Well, that's what Jeremy says as well. Remember, the betting odds on Levis going first overall shot up days prior to the draft. But I never really bought into that. That was one that I was never really given any credence to because he'd gotten negged the entire draft process. People were down on Will Levis. Cosell and I talked about it the year before his senior season at Kentucky. Greg said, this guy has all the tools. If his 2022 season goes correctly, guy has all the tools to be the first overall pick. And then it didn't go correctly. And he ended up being the, second pick of the second round, right? So for Levis, maybe, but that was never one that I bought. We had just heard so much to the contrary in real life experiences, and knowing a little bit about Levis, people didn't love the meetings with him because, we've heard Nick Holtz talk about this. He can be kind of quiet. If he's too locked in, if he's too intense on a particular thing, he can kind of, it sounds like not zone out, but zone in so much that he's not necessarily as interactive as you might expect him to be in another situation where he's chewing DeAndre Hopkins out because there's been a miscommunication and he thinks it's on the fault of the receiver and the receiver's trying to tell him, hey, kid, chill out a little bit.
We didn't buy Levis going number 1. Yeah.
No.
But we would not have predicted Levis falling out of the first round entirely. That was very surprising.
Fair enough. Now, were we ever really buying Stroud to the Titans? Because I looked at that and said, but why would Houston ever allow them to do that deal if that's who they want? Because the idea was not to trade up to 3, but to potentially be able to trade up to 2. And it just never really made sense to me. Now, you can want C.J. Stroud. There's plenty. I'm sure Mike Vrabel loves C.J. Stroud. I'm sure that Rand Carthon also thought, I don't know specifically, but I'm sure they both thought of him as a viable enough prospect to try and trade up and get. And then when a deal couldn't get in place, I remember getting a text about an hour before the trade ended up happening saying, no, Houston's coming up to 3 and doing it again. They're gonna use this draft capital, these assets, to come up and get the best defensive player off the board as well, along with the best quarterback in their estimation.
And they always had more ammo to do so. But speaking of draft rumors, a Titans fan on the F&M Bank chat says draft rumors. You know who's quiet? Rossini. Teams learned their lesson with her last year. Quite the contrary, a Titans fan on the F&M Bank chat, because we have an exercise here where I have several NFL draft reports/rumors from this week to throw at Buck to get reaction on whether he buys it, whether it's a smokescreen, whether he doesn't buy it, and how it would affect the Titans. And there's plenty in here from Diana Rossini and what she was hearing from teams.
Well, real quick, so I don't understand the allegation.
He's saying
the teams aren't talking to Diana because what?
He's saying, teams aren't talking to Diana because of the way things played out last year. I don't know.
The only 2 people that have broken more NFL news this offseason are Schefter and Rappaport and Pelissero, as far as only 3 people. I haven't seen anybody else break more news than Diana.
Well, teams are talking to Diana. It doesn't mean that what they're telling Diana is exactly what they're thinking or what's going to happen. But that's the point of all this, right? It's just a giant rumor mill that we do until that first name is called. So we're going to go basically from the top of the draft. We all know Caleb Williams is going number 1 to the Chicago Bears. We're going to start here with the number 3 pick, though, with the New England Patriots. And a report from Diana Rossini. I was listening to her this morning on the Athletic Football Show with Robert Mays. And Diana said, Buck, that the New England Patriots would need a, quote, king's ransom to trade out of the number 3 pick. They likely want to stay there and take their quarterback.
I'll buy it.
You buy it.
I think they can cause a lot of chaos in the draft order, especially, you see what Monty Ossenfort yesterday said about he's not listening to anybody to try and maximize leverage until they're on the clock.
Yeah, that's on this as well.
He wants to squeeze teams. The reason that Monty wants to hold pat and squeeze teams is because he's probably looking at New England and being like, all right, I'll call your bluff. Do it.
So you buy that New England sticks and picks a quarterback at 3 and we go 1, 2, 3. At quarterback, with the Patriots being the 3rd. We're going to go 1, 2, 3 no matter what. The question is, will the Patriots be that 3rd team selecting a QB? Despite all the roster holes they have.
I don't want to say that I don't see another way around it, because of course they could find another way around it if they feel like, for example, can you trade back enough, still get Penix or something like that, who NFL, I sent you that clip from Diana the other day saying that NFL GMs are talking about Penix as one of the best kept secrets in the draft.
Will you stop? You're taking all of the ones that I was going to throw at you.
Okay,
just quit bringing up other rumors. Do you buy or sell that the Patriots take a QB at 3?
I'm buying.
Okay.
I'm buying.
The Las Vegas Raiders view Jaden Daniels as a day 1 starter and want to move up to get him. That is from Tony Pauline. That the Raiders have Jaden Daniels on their mind.
Buying, because Washington is apparently sold on Jaden Daniels at 2, so why wouldn't he be good enough for the Raiders at a later pick?
What would it take for the Raiders to move up to 2 to take Jaden Daniels? I mean, is there a price that the Commanders would be willing to take to not get their supposed franchise quarterback at 2?
There's always a price. There's always a price. It doesn't matter who the player is, doesn't matter how far along they are in their career, or whether their career is officially started yet. There's always a price. But it would take, beyond just the Godfather offer that the Patriots are after, this would have to be like some kind of record-setting deal.
There are connections there, too. I think Daniels grew up a Raiders fan. He's got some sort of connection to Antonio Pierce. Oh, they were together at Arizona State. That's what it was when Pierce was on that staff. Chef Ran on the F&M Bank chat says, Daniels will fall to 7. Drake May is much better.
Well, thankfully, that's not the actual Ran, because that does not sound like very sound draft advice. I don't think that Drake May is much better than Jaden Daniels.
Well, you don't think that there are NFL people that think that Drake May is much better than Jaden Daniels as a QB prospect?
Every time I read draft analysis of Drake May, it's talking about he's the kind of type of player to get you fired. So I don't.
What? Where is this coming from?
Merrill Hodge.
I feel like Drake May has been, that's one person. Drake May is viewed as a top 3 draft prospect at quarterback.
I'm sure.
Say every time I read one person saying that.
That's right.
The Arizona Cardinals,
smokescreen,
as you said, will not move the number 4 pick until they are on the clock. This makes sense, right? This makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Although Monty seems to love being photographed on the phone. He seems to really enjoy the art of wheeling and dealing in front of a camera for the Cardinals. And by the way, nobody picked up more draft capital in a draft than did Monty Ossenfort last year. He's the reason that the Titans don't have a 3rd-round pick, because that Will Levis deal. They have been strategically planning this for quite some time. He's going to put his franchise in the best position to succeed, and that I 100% believe is going to be not until they are on the clock at number 4 and saying, all right, who's desperate enough? Come get him, boys.
Albert Breer said in his news and notes this week regarding the NFL draft that the Los Angeles Chargers, he believes, will consider JC Latham heavily with the number 5 pick to slide in there at right tackle and bookend that offensive line with Rashawn Slater on the left side. So that would in turn likely mean JC Latham, the first offensive lineman off the board in the NFL draft. Buck, do you buy or sell that JC Latham could be the first lineman taken?
Sell. But there's always one move that shocks everybody in the top 10, right? There's always one. I mean, you could argue that it was Cleveland Farrell at 4 in 2019, maybe even Daniel Jones
gonna
at
say
6.
Yeah, same draft.
But that was, I mean, what was my guy's name? What was the GM of the Giants at the time? That funny dude said he wasn't going to trade Odell Beckham Jr. for a cup of coffee and a bag of donuts, and then immediately traded Odell Beckham Jr.
I don't remember
his name. Anyway, so they have a left tackle in Los Angeles. They don't necessarily need Joe Alt unless they think one of the two players between Alt and Slater is the left tackle in Los Angeles right now, who's a very, very good left tackle when he's healthy. Unless they think one of the two can slide over and play right, they could use a right tackle. JC Latham is the best right tackle. His concerns about his footwork don't make it. Where did Darnell Wright go last year?
10, or not last year, or I guess it was.
Was he taken 10th? Did he make it into double digits?
I guess it was last year.
I thought he was.
Darnell Wright was the 10th pick in the draft. Yep.
And that's where the best right tackle went last year. So 5 would be high.
Jim Harbaugh is the wild card.
I can make it make sense, and because it's Harbaugh, I'll say buying because of that exact reason. Yeah. Harbaugh's going to make a mess of something in the middle of all this.
By the way, Kevin in the FNN Bank chat, Dave Gettleman is the Giants GM that you were trying to think of.
Gettleman, yes.
Speaking of the New York Football Giants, another one here from Albert Breer, that he believes the New York Giants connected very well with Drake May, that they're big fans with Drake May, and he could easily see them selecting Drake May, the quarterback out of North Carolina, with the number 6 pick if he falls there. If not, he sees them going wide receiver.
He says easily. I don't buy easily.
I don't think he said the word easily.
Okay, so let's pull
it up verbatim.
That's an important clarification though, Lucas, because I think that they could easily wait around until the 2nd and draft Bo Nix, right? That sounds more smokescreen to me than anything else that you've tossed out there. I'm not buying that.
Albert Breer said they've done all the work on quarterbacks about the Giants. They traveled to Chapel Hill to work out May. They went to Ann Arbor to work out McCarthy. They went to Seattle to work out Penix. They had groups at the pro days, and they did top 30 visits with each. The quarterback he has heard them connected to most by far, he says, is Drake May. If they can't get in position to take May, he says, I could see the Giants standing pat and taking a receiver. I would say this spot is the floor for Marvin Harrison Jr.
So, in theory, they would have to trade up to at least, they would have to trade up to at least 4 to get Drake May, right? With the teams with quarterback needs right now.
You would think.
And maybe even 3, depending on what that offer looks like. I don't know what the cost of moving from 6 to 3 or 6 to 4 would look like, but it would still be consequential, and you would still have a top 10 pick at that point.
You just keep going back to that buyer's remorse comment from Rich Eisen about Daniel Jones at the Combine.
6 games on that contract is not enough for them to draft a first-round quarterback. He's not Josh Rosen. And Daboll, I don't know. I'm not buying that one. Maybe there's enough logic there, enough loose threads there, like the JC Latham Chargers thing to make the connection if I wanted to, but I can't make that make logical sense. And, I can. It just pisses me off for Daniel Jones that a team would be that dumb to hand out that contract and then immediately move on.
You already alluded to this one, but a lot of people have been on this. I saw Chase Daniel, the former NFL quarterback, talking about this on his podcast, that Michael Penix is a first-round caliber quarterback, and Diana Rossini said that Michael Penix is the best-kept secret in the draft, that we could hear his name called much earlier than expected. What is that threshold to you? What is the threshold where Michael Penix's name is called and it's earlier than we thought it would be? Because, Michael Penix's name getting called at 11, at 12, where the Raiders and Broncos kind of reside, would not be that shocking to me.
No, but if he's a top 10 pick, if he goes before McCarthy
yes.
What if he goes before May?
That's where it would get pretty surprising.
Right, and I don't think that's completely illogical. Again, we have no idea how these teams have these respective quarterbacks graded out. The thing that I don't buy is that he's a secret. He played for a national championship. He's been in college football for an eternity now. How the hell is Michael Penix a secret to NFL evaluators?
I don't think you knew Michael Penix's name a year ago.
That's different.
And he played at your alma mater.
You know the difference between me as a college, especially an Indiana college football consumer, which I am not, to talent scouts, to NFL evaluators, to people who are going to have backgrounds on these guys going back to their high school recruitment. Don't try and compare me to an NFL GM because I refuse to watch Indiana football out of spite, if no other reason.
You didn't even know he transferred from Indiana when he was lighting it up at Washington.
I had no idea. You had to tell me that Caleb DeBoer was in Indiana.
Alabama's basically whole staff was Indiana's 2019 coaching staff under Tom Allen.
I don't think that's fair at all. That's a completely different standard.
So how could the Michael Penix conversation impact the Titans if Penix is a shock name in that top 6, top 7, which we would be very surprised by? That's just more talent being pushed down to the Titans, right? And more option, more urgency for teams that are desperate to trade up for a quarterback.
Or an opportunity to trade back, right? If a team thinks that Penix can be had at 7 and you're trying to beat the rush of Minnesota at 11 or Vegas at 13, or it's one of those two teams that's coming up to get Penix, or to see how the Broncos try and maneuver now because their situation is a science experiment at this point. All of this benefits this much quarterback. It's not quite controversy, but this much quarterback debate only benefits the Titans with a pick like 7, given the needs that they have. Because while Levis is not a 100% guaranteed, surefire commodity just yet, I think this is the year that we need to find out about him. They're not in the quarterback market, really. They've got Mason Rudolph. They've got Malik Willis. This is not a discussion that they even really need to be a part of, other than how can they leverage it to the best strategy possible. And as we talked about with Mike Keith in the first hour, for those who didn't hear it, you can check out the podcast with the voice of the Titans. Mike Keith said that the only way that there's a trade out of the 7th overall pick is if it involves a 2024 third. And I 100% take him at that. And it's not like Mike is giving out insider information. This is just, you can't envision a scenario that sees them trading back without picking up another day 2 pick.
Man, think about the flexibility you could get out of getting a 2024 third in terms of the pass catchers that could be there, of defensive needs that you don't get to address in the first 2 rounds.
It's why I honestly, the more, and maybe I'm just overthinking it at this point because they could take the left tackle and have it done and dusted. But I really do think that the trade back is the scenario that's going to end up making the most sense. No matter if Penix makes an unexpected jump or an unpredicted jump, or JC Latham goes as the first tackle taken in a way that you're alleging that there's some discussion about. Speaking of JC Latham, we had Jordan Reed of ESPN on the radio show, what was that, Friday, and his analysis of Latham as to the differences between the tackles and whether JC Latham could potentially play left tackle, I think is relevant to this conversation.
JC Latham of Alabama is one I've went back and forth about, just because a lot of inconsistency throughout his tape. Just because of, he's such a massive dude, 6'5", 340 pounds. You just want him you want him to overwhelm guys more consistently. Then also there's some times of where you wish the pass protection was a little bit better, especially he gets beat a lot with inside moves. So you want him to get better with that over time, and it just didn't happen. But there's other games like against Georgia in the SEC title game of where he just played the entire game pissed off. And you're like, man, if this could be the guy that I see consistently every single game, there's no telling what his ceiling could be on the next level. So he still ended up being a top 20 player for me, but you just wish at times he continued to play pissed off throughout games. So JC Latham is one that definitely I went back and forth with a lot.
He's just so strong. You see him get crossed up every once in a while with his footwork, and I know he played right tackle at Alabama. Obviously, there's been some discussion about potentially is he capable of playing left. Is that maybe the spot where you've gone back and forth, or do you view him as one particular tackle over the other?
I think he's strictly a right tackle, just because I don't know if he has the foot quickness and the suddenness to go over to the left side, and I'm always big on keeping offensive linemen where they've had success at, just because it's different learning the postures and the mannerisms and trying to be developed at a completely different position, in my opinion, just because you have to learn everything in reverse. So he spent all his time at right tackle, but if you transition him over to the left side, the muscle memory and everything associated with that is completely different. So I would say he's strictly a right tackle.
That's Jordan Reed. You can check out the podcast or the full interview on YouTube.
And the Chargers would be taking him to play right tackle.
Mm-hmm.
Diana Rossini says after the Zach Wilson trade to Denver that the Broncos will keep talking behind the scenes for a trade up for a quarterback even after the Zach Wilson trade. The race to trade up for a quarterback between Denver, Minnesota, and Vegas is going to be fascinating, and nobody has more ammo than than Minnesota in that regard.
Bye.
A lot of teams have different draft boards than public mock drafts. Expect to hear my name called before the end of the first round. That is from Houston offensive tackle Patrick Paul. Jordan Schultz, NFL reporter, has echoed this, saying that you shouldn't be surprised if Patrick Paul hears his name called in the first round. Do you buy or sell that the Houston offensive tackle could be a first-round draft pick?
Why aren't we talking about him in the same light that we're talking about Amarius Mims? Because I'm not saying that they're the same player, but I kind of look at them as these potential fringe first-round talents, depending on which team decides to take a flyer on them for all the traits and tools that they have at their disposal, how moldable that situation would be. I'll buy it. The offensive lineman, I think that run is going to start in the first round, and I think it's going to go very, very quickly because everybody needs tackle help. Right? We've talked about this. There's maybe 15 teams in the NFL out of 32 that feel like that know they have a competent starting offensive line. Probably 8 of them feel great about their offensive line situation.
Dane Brugler of The Athletic in The Beast, his comprehensive draft guide, has Patrick Paul as his number 8 tackle. He has him with a second or third round grade behind Kingsley Suamataya, the BYU tackle, also behind Tyler Guyton, who he has at 6, Mims at 5, Fuaga 4, Latham 3, and then Fashanu and Alt. Alt is number 1 for Dane Brugler.
And Guyton is being talked about more as an interior player at the next level.
But Patrick Paul, if we are talking about a trade back for the Titans, would certainly be a name to keep an eye on, right, for Titans fans. If you're going to address tackle in a situation where you do trade back out of the top 10.
I think this is a pretty cut and dry draft. Like, we all know that the controversies around the quarterbacks, and, maybe we'll hear 1 or 2 other names that we're not expecting to hear, but I don't think any of this is shocking to you, right? Like, none of this would be an earth-shattering departure from where we've been talking about, other than one of the quarterbacks falling precipitously the way that Levis did last year.
I don't know. I don't know that we're going to open the show on Friday morning saying, well, that was pretty cut and dry. Yep, just as we expected.
Well, no, I'm not going to do it that way.
Just as we predicted. If you were listening to us, I don't think that's how it's going to go. Typically, that's not the case.
What do we predict will happen tonight in Vancouver with the Preds trying to even the series against the Canucks? We'll talk about Game 2 coming up next.